too late now. I think the time's passed. I don't think they can. I don't think they will sign anyone now. But my big fear is the damage is done. Personally, this might sound a bit negative, but I don't think they'll win the title from here. I don't think they'll win the Champions League, and they're obviously now out the FA Cup. So, that might be a very bleak prediction, but it's been an exceptional campaign in terms of injuries. Not many teams will have been hit this hard in just one area, and that's not even starting to look at the other areas such as Diogo Jota and other injuries and niggles that they've had throughout the season. But to leave themselves this exposed, I think, is a massive error. And now they're just going to get as close to the top as possible, stay in the top four and get through. But it's a massive shame because I still, I've said it all along and I still believe it. I still think Liverpool, when they have players fit, are the best team in this league. And all right, form might say otherwise at the moment, but I don't think United or City have been hit that hard. I know Aguero's missed most of the season, but they have such a wealth of talent there. And it's not as if Aguero's been injured along with other players. So I think it's been hard on Liverpool, but poor planning, poor reactions. What can you say? It's really disappointing.
Connor, has the handling of Rhys Williams as well not been quite poor as well? Gorsty sort of saying he's a teenager who's been at the club since the age of 10. It's not his fault that he's been needed to answer the cries for help for Liverpool, and in many ways, in certain games, hung out to dry and then exposed, unfortunately, to some brutal reaction online, which won't have done him any good.
Yeah, definitely. I'll answer that in a second, but I honestly just want to repeat the point that I made last week on the pod after the United draw. Why they didn't have one lined up for January the 1st. All right, fine. Let Lovren leave in the summer. Okay, we can deal with that because you've got 3 centre-backs you've got to stand in. Okay, when 3 of them get injured in October, essentially, John Matt's not going to get a run. You've got 2 months to line one up for January the 1st. And I took Doyley on it because I was like, pay over the odds for someone. If you're going to go for someone in the summer, pay over the odds from now. Don't let the season derail. The best position Liverpool have ever been in my lifetime. Why just let it disintegrate over not essentially signing one player, maybe going to pay a little bit more for him? Somebody like Ben White, I know they've tracked anyway. They want him, or they wanted him. So why not just go and get him? I know you're going to have to pay a little bit more and financial situations aren't the best, but you think the rewards at the end of the season, the financial rewards that come with those rewards would far outweigh the initial outlay on any player now. But as Joe mentioned there, it's way too late now. We're 5 days or 6 days from the transfer window closing, and what are they going to do? If it's a rush now, it'll be a useless effort signing. It's silly. But yeah, to go back to your point on Rhys Williams, it's really disappointing. He's a young kid. As Gorty said, he's on loan at Kidderminster Harriers last year. He's had to come up, and to be fair to him, he stepped up really well when he's been asked to. But when he stepped up and Liverpool have kept clean sheets, the people in the attack haven't scored. So the results haven't been very good. And then when they have scored, it's left him a bit more open and a bit more vulnerable. And then you have clever players like Cavani and like Fernandes coming on yesterday, who, he never would have experienced anything like an Edison Cavani before. He's been around a long, long time. He's a wily striker. He's going to get the better of Williams, quite comfortably. And it's not fair to expect Williams to essentially lead Liverpool's backline as the one recognised central defender against a top-class Man United striker in the 5th round of the FA Cup. It's unbelievable, really.
No, and even on sort of the man next to him, Gorsty, and Fabinho, we've seen now a couple of incidents at home to Sheffield United and that incident at the end of the game yesterday where he's tried, I suppose, midfield tackles in defensive positions. And regardless of whether you think the players have gone down softly and it shouldn't have been a foul, he's given the referee an opportunity to penalise him. And obviously on both occasions, the penalty was scored against Sheffield United, albeit Liverpool won. But yesterday, it's obviously knocked them out of the FA Cup.
Yeah, I was at Chelsea when the team used at centre half, and I think he was alongside Van Dijk that day. And as tends to be the case, there was enormous kind of worry and concern about the fact that Fabinho was going to be playing at centre back, and you'd take Fabinho in a heartbeat now at centre back when you're delighted when he's fit, and the fact that he's able to play at centre back. He's reinvented himself into probably one of the best centre. I think he's had a fantastic season. He's probably been Liverpool's player of the season so far. But you're right. Sometimes the fact that he is a midfielder by trade does creep in, and one or two tackles fly in when maybe not what another experienced natural centre-back would do, and that was certainly the case against Cavani yesterday. I did think it was a foul. I know some people have suggested otherwise, but I can't look at that objectively and say that it wasn't a foul. And he did it against Sheffield United, as you mentioned, and that was a little bit more nuanced. I think not even sure it was in the penalty area now, looking back on it. But look, I'd be certainly reluctant to criticise Reece Williams, and probably even more so Fabinho, because I think he's been fantastic. And he's another one who's been injured as well, hasn't he? He had the hamstring injury back in October, was it, or November? So he's another one who's been on the shelf, and it's just been a catalogue of errors and setbacks at centre-back this season that sadly now looks like it could cost Liverpool the title, and we're going to get onto it no doubt, but Thursday night now is huge. And we said United was the biggest game of the season 8 days ago. This one on Thursday is going to be just as big in terms of Liverpool potentially either dropping out the top four or giving the season a massive shot in the arm, which it hugely needs at the moment.
Yeah, Connor, I know we spoke on Friday's podcast and everyone was sort of in agreement on Friday about Liverpool's chances for the top four, but just wondered if any of you guys are worried about that and whether or not Liverpool should have done something more decisive. Look, today Chelsea have sacked a club legend in Frank Lampard. They might be in ninth, but they are only 5 points off Liverpool, and looks like they're going to be bringing in a coach who guided PSG to the Champions League final last season. They're being decisive midway through the season with the hope that it will bear results in the second half of the campaign.
Yeah, so to touch on your first point, I'm personally not worried about Liverpool making top four. I think if Matip gets a little run, they'll be absolutely fine. Henderson getting back in the team is massive. You miss him so much. Jota coming back, obviously February will be massive as well. There's a few things that will happen, and I think Liverpool will have plenty to get into the top four, because I still, as Joe said, I think they're probably the best side in the Premier League, and certainly with everyone's fit, I don't think they're going to have any issue getting into the top four. And to touch on your Chelsea point, they've been ultra decisive, of course, but sacking a manager again in the nature that they have, I'm not sure is going to have the exact catalyst effect that they want it to. Obviously, they want top four. They spent a lot of money in the summer, and they might get that inevitable new manager bounce. But the new manager is going to have to come in and work with these players that he hasn't worked with before. They're not gelling as a unit. He's got so much to do, and maybe now wasn't the time to sack Lampard in terms of going forward in the season, but it's what Chelsea do, isn't it? So there you go.
Is it, Joe, comparable to Liverpool in terms of the decision-making? Chelsea felt as though they had the players, but the manager not getting enough out of them, whereas Liverpool, they've got the manager. The one glaring issue is the centre of defence, and no decisions are being made.
To be honest, I don't like comparisons with Chelsea. I think Liverpool and Chelsea are two very different clubs with two very different philosophies. And, I'd take Liverpool's philosophy over Chelsea's every day of the week. I think it's the better way of running a football club. Perhaps Chelsea could point to the trophies that they've won in the last 10, 15 years and say that, that perhaps it might not be the most noble approach, but it's effective. But saying that, they do fluctuate in terms of their form and league position, and I think Liverpool are far more capable of getting into the top four and winning major trophies than Chelsea at the moment. Frank Lampard was always inexperienced, and probably I don't think anyone would have bet against him getting the sack at some point. But yeah, so I don't really like the comparisons between the two. I think you look back at the summer and Chelsea spent a hell of a lot of money, and there was a lot of. I remember I was working the night that Werner signed for Chelsea, and people were taking aim at the owners then, and I immediately wrote a piece sticking up for them, and I still believe I was right there. I think that they had the whole summer still to go, and then they brought in Diogo Jota, which I think has proved to be a good signing. So I don't think that anyone should be envious of Chelsea's spending, but I think Liverpool could have been cleverer in the way that they treated the centre half. They fixed other issues. They brought in an extra left back. They brought in another midfielder, and they brought in another attacker. But the one other glaring issue was a centre half. And I've no doubt that Liverpool will go out and buy a centre half in the summer to come, and I've no doubt that they'll have done their homework, that they will buy someone that they've got massive faith in. But I still can't help but think that this is such a massive opportunity missed. And teams go through spells of being very good, and at this point in time, I think Liverpool are at their peak, and injuries now will probably curtail a season which should have promised a whole lot more. And that's down, personally, I think it's down to poor planning. Chelsea spent a lot of money. They spent aggressively, perhaps not as carefully as Liverpool do. I'm not convinced that there was a lot of planning going into Timo Werner or Kai Havertz, but Liverpool could have been better. So I don't really think the two situations are comparable, but I do think you can be critical of both of them in different ways.
But sorry, guys, just to interject, what I would say is kind of not so much sticking up for the club's owners, but I think there is mitigation and there is a reason as to why they haven't gone in the market. They're still playing behind closed doors. They haven't had any fans inside Anfield, really, apart from 3 games of 2,000 fans each since March. So they're losing about £3 million per home game. On top of that, they got one of the biggest wage bills in the sport, which was at 310 million, I believe, earlier this summer. So since then, they've signed Diogo Jota and Thiago Alcantara. Conservative estimate, what would you suggest there, on £100,000 each? So there's an extra £200,000 added to that wage bill. So there's not unlimited cash reserves at Liverpool, and they've never made any secret of that. It's just a case of surely some funds could have been freed up somewhere along the line to have brought in. No, I think it's unrealistic to expect a blockbuster summer signing to arrive 6 months earlier. I really do, but it's a question of surely there has to be someone around who is dependable, of adequate quality, that is going to be less of a risk than playing Nat Phillips or Reece Williams. I think that for me is why so many fans have got a point when they're kind of demanding a player to be bought, because I don't think anyone to come through those in January. It's just a case of, was there not? I always go back to Ragnar Klavan. Was there not a Ragnar Klavan available to come in and steady the ship for 6 months? That for me is where the big mistake has been made.
I'll come back.
The thing. Sorry to just interject. I was going to say Klavan, because I think Liverpool talk about how they don't do stopgaps, but they bought that Ragnar Klavan, and he turned out to be a good signing for them for a couple of seasons, and then they moved him on and they progressed as a team. But to me, it was, if they plan however many windows in advance, surely they would have looked at it and gone, okay, yeah, all right, we get down to Fabinho, but why don't we go out and look and try and find someone? And perhaps they did look around and go, look, there's nobody we can really think that we can agree a deal for, that fits the price range, whatever. Maybe they did, and I think this is the difficult thing about sitting here criticising the owners, that the management or whatever, is that you're not privy to what goes on behind closed doors. There's only so many things that people will tell you. So, I seen a few people on Twitter last night saying, find out this and that. And, I think you've got to understand that there's only so much you can find out. But yeah, I mean, that's the obvious one to me. You look at Klavan, and he was a very clever signing for what he was worth. And I thought he coped admirably. And he was a step up from someone like Reece Williams, who, with the best will in the world, might go on to be a better player than Klavan, but is 19 and perhaps just doesn't make the right choices. 19 is very, very young for a centre half. So yeah, to reiterate Gorsty's point, Klavan was the one for me that says Liverpool can do it. So why didn't they? The
other thing with this situation is City last season almost did exactly the same thing. I know obviously Kompany left the club, and it's different, obviously, losing Van Dijk to injury, but similar deal, you don't have your talisman in central defence available. And then Fernandinho drops back. They had issues, didn't sign a defender, didn't sign a centre-back, dropped away in the title race, signed one in the summer, looks super strong because they've got a full complement of defence. And it's not exactly like this is all a big surprise that this is happening. It's not like we didn't see this coming, or I hadn't seen this before, or this is new. It's just something they should have seen, really, really should have seen. And again, City probably, you could say the same, probably did try and get a player when Kompany left, but failed to. And look what happened. They lost out in the title race big time. So similar thing is happening to Liverpool right now, and we're witnessing it ourselves. So there we go.
Yeah, certainly. Gorsty, on the point you were making in terms of money lost for Liverpool and everything, I think a lot of people can probably accept that they'll wait till the summer to make a blockbuster centre-half signing. But is there not an opportunity and maybe spread those payments like they've done with the Diogo Jota deal, so therefore free up some cash now for whether it be a short-term loan? That would sort of seem to work the situation out. Wait for Van Dijk and Gomez to return from injury. Know your pecking order of defenders and add one to that. But in the meantime, bring somebody in on loan.
Yeah, the loan market was possibly an issue, wasn't it? We've just seen Fikayo Tomori move to AC Milan, and possibly Chelsea wouldn't have been willing to do business there. But it's just someone of that kind of ilk, someone who's going to be solid and dependable for 3, 4 months, 5 months. It's what the upshot of that is potentially losing more ground in the Premier League title race, and you waited 30 years to win it, and you look like you're going to crack on and become a real kind of force for years to come, and then it falls away just because of the misfortune of injuries and the unwillingness or the inability to act on it. It just seems such a shame. But we don't know if Liverpool have tried to sort that, but everything that we've been led to believe for quite some time now was that January was never going to be the month. So Liverpool, it looks like, sadly, they're going to have to kind of put all the eggs in the Joe Matip basket, which, as we've discussed, has never proven to be the most sturdy.
It's made of crisps.
Yeah.
Yeah, not what you want from a basket, certainly when it's wet outside as well. But yeah, Joe, not that stuff. Joe, looking at Liverpool, and there was sort of something came out on social media regarding former Arsenal defender Socrates Papastatopoulos, and he's obviously worked with Jurgen Klopp at Borussia Dortmund. Looks as though he's going to Olympiacos. But again, we spoke about Klavan. It would seem the sort of right fit for Liverpool to just bring someone in as a stopgap, even if it's on a short-term contract and maybe paying over the odds. It's not what FSG do, but maybe it's needed to secure that Champions League spot.
I made up they didn't sign him just because of the struggles you've just had trying to say his name, and you've been watching him. So to be honest, I'm going to push this back on you, Guy. Just you tell us, is he any good? I don't know. I heard nothing but bad things, so perhaps that's why Liverpool stay clear.
Yeah, and I don't think he's the best defending high and sort of getting exposed in wide areas. But I suppose it comes to that experience. He's a player that Jurgen Klopp has worked with in the past. He surely could have done a job.
I see what you mean. I do think the slight difficulty for Liverpool is that a lot of people are saying, they should have gone out and bought, myself included, an experienced centre-half. But there's no good getting a Socrates, for example, if he's just going to get exposed week after week, and he's no better than Reece Williams or Nat Phillips. And I think that is the challenge Liverpool have. But this is why I go back to last summer and think, that's when they should have been planning for this, not now when you're in crisis and struggling each week. Because even now, let's say they went out and bought a first choice of Ben White or Upamecano or something like that. They'd still need time to settle. They would still be thrown in at a time when Liverpool is struggling. So it'd be incredibly difficult, wouldn't it? For let's say they bought Ben White, you put him straight in, Tottenham away, and then you've got Leipzig in the Champions League, you've got the Merseyside derby, you've got tough games, and if he doesn't make a good start, it makes his life really difficult. So, that's why I think now the thought of buying someone like Socrates or bringing him in on a free doesn't really help anyone, really. I don't think it makes Liverpool any better. I think they should have done this last summer or had something lined up for January. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really see the point in going out and getting someone like Socrates. I don't think he'd probably prove to be any better than a Reece Williams, but that's the position Liverpool have put themselves in, so it's frustrating.
No, certainly is. I'm just astounded at as we said, the lack of planning, given how decisive in the transfer market Liverpool so often are. But let's talk about some positives now. Move forward. Gorsty, at Old Trafford, Liverpool got 2 goals. We've been waiting for one. They got 2. Mohamed Salah with a brace. Yeah,
and he took them very well, didn't he? It was good to see kind of the first one was a superb goal. I thought, lovely ball from Firmino. Salah waited and think wasn't David De Gea as I thought it was for much of the game. It was actually Dean Henderson, and I wasn't the only one who made that mistake in the press box. Lovely finish off his right foot and took it like a man in confidence, didn't he? And Firmino played him in like turning on a switch, which made it all the more baffling why he's just struggled so much for goals in the Premier League. When you see they're able to just turn the hand at that as soon as a kind of half chance presents itself. And for the second one as well, I thought Firmino laid them in nicely. James Milner did very well to get out the way, and again, it's a nice finish. And it was much more of a Liverpool goal, if you like, with pressing from the front and making the most of a bit of indecision at the back from United. So there were positives to take. I thought it was probably the best Liverpool have played for a good few weeks, but ultimately they've come away from Old Trafford with nothing to show for it, and they're out the FA Cup, which is no great shame. Particularly, I know Jurgen Klopp won't be that disappointed, but I think kind of the venue and the opposition will hurt more than actually going out the cup.
Yeah, we saw on Thursday with the Burnley game, Connor, as soon as Divock Origi hit the bar, everyone was like, well, that's that. And Liverpool seem over the last few weeks to have kind of had the handbrake on. They didn't at all at Old Trafford. They were really taking the game to United, and obviously 5 goals shared in the end. But going forward, it was looking as though Liverpool were getting back towards their best.
Yeah, definitely. It was good to see. I know obviously there's been plenty of analysis about where position of Trent and Robertson have been in terms of when we're dropping a bit deeper and stuff. I thought they looked like they were playing higher up. I thought they looked like they're finding more space. I thought Liverpool looked way more at it, all over the place. But yeah, it come from that pressing from the front. And Firmino is probably the one for me. When he is on his game, when he's chasing down players, when he's winning tackles right at the very front line, I think people behind him pick themselves up and think, hang on, we can go with him here. We can back him. We can get Liverpool forward. And obviously with the 2 goals, as soon as you allow somebody the quality of Firmino a little bit of space, you get punished. And, Salah's 2 finishes I thought were excellent. The first one was superb, right-footed as well. It's just strange how it hasn't happened. But, I mean, watching that and the calibre of opposition as well, you think Liverpool will have no trouble scoring goals going forward. But with that comes a little bit of more fragility at the back. It's all a bit hell for leather at the front, which we're so used to seeing with such a solid base. But that base isn't quite as solid anymore. So that's where you find some issues, and teams like Man United score goals against you because you're more free-flowing, more attacking players are higher up the pitch, chasing down, which leaves gaps and exposing the counter-attack as they did do on a couple of occasions.
Yeah, definitely. Joe, how pleased were you to see Roberto Firmino back doing what he usually does? He's coming for a bit of criticism in recent weeks, but he did seem to play a key part in the goals.
Yeah, I think Connor's spot on. I think he is getting Firmino playing is the key to getting Liverpool playing, isn't it? When he's on form, he attracts players to him. He opens up space for Salah and Mane, and I feel slightly sorry for Salah and Mane because I think there's been a bit of criticism of them too. But I think they often feed on what Liverpool's midfield and what Firmino does around them, and then they can get into those little pockets of space, and they haven't been allowed to do that. And Firmino just hasn't been on it, and it's a difficult one. Of Liverpool going through a transition, should he be the one that they should be planning to replace? It's hard to say. I think he's going to be the most difficult player in the team, almost to one day replace. But it was good to see him getting back to his best. He battled well. He got involved in every little good moment that Liverpool had, and all right, he didn't look a goal threat, but Firmino never really does. He still pops up with the odd important goal like he did against Spurs, but I don't think his main job is to look a goal threat. It's to create threats for Salah and Mane, and he did that well for Salah yesterday. And I thought he looked a lot better, and I hope they can keep him playing, because if they can, I think Liverpool's front three will click back into gear. But I just also wanted to make a shout for. I thought Curtis Jones played very well, more advanced, and there's a rawness about Jones that I like at times. I think
when he came centrally, I thought he was excellent yesterday.
Yeah, he was, and he's strong, and he doesn't hide. He gets involved. He gets himself on the ball. He makes things happen, and we'll talk about picking the team later. I'd be tempted to play him against Tottenham, and I think he's had a really good season quietly for Liverpool. I thought that was a reminder to everyone of how good he is, and perhaps he's, as Liverpool have got players back fit in the midfield area, he's been the natural one to drop out. But perhaps that's slightly unfair. Perhaps he should stay in the team, because I thought he did well yesterday, and he's impressed this season. Really mature, but still has that rawness that you need at times. So I thought he played well.
That enthusiasm when Liverpool are in this moment, and that willingness to drive forward and willingness to chase every ball and willingness to run to the 90, even though they're not playing well, it's been missed, and it was really, really good to see. And I think he's another that got Liverpool playing. Liverpool's players around him thought, okay, he's running, we'll do the same, we'll follow him, we'll back him. He's young, we'll play with him. And yeah, I thought Jones played really well as well, to be fair.
Yeah, Liverpool's dip in form has coincided with him coming out of the side. And Gorsty, with the return of Thiago Alcantara, what is it, 5 starts now for Liverpool and no win? And I suppose moving ahead and looking towards Tottenham, the game might be quite similar, them sitting deep and looking for their fast attackers to counter. And I think when we were all getting excited about Thiago coming to Liverpool and to the Premier League, it's what he could do with the ball. But I thought a couple of times at Old Trafford without the ball, he was flying into a few reckless challenges, and defensively maybe not quite the same kind of player as what you obviously have with Fabinho in there.
Yeah, he doesn't mind the tackle, does he? But I think that's been one of the most surprising things of being able to watch him regularly. That's something that I missed when he was at Bayern and Barca, is seeing him throw a tackle in. I've seen him put in a few now. Sometimes they're a bit reckless and mistimed, and sometimes he wins it quite well. That is an interesting part of his game. But yeah, I think Wiley, Mourinho will know that using a similar game plan to last month when he was at Anfield, and he'll have watched that game yesterday and know that if he can keep his counter-attacking threat high and be brave and bold in that sense when Trent Alexander-Arnold is bombing on, that there could be chances for them if it breaks down. And we saw that yesterday, didn't we, with Marcus Rashford, who was the game's outstanding player. Gave Paul Reece-Williams a torrid time, and it was a bit of a mismatch. So I think Mourinho will have looked at that. But I'm not too worried about Thiago at the moment. I think he's had 2.5 months out after coming into a new team. He's had coronavirus, he's missed games. So he's just finding his feet, and no doubt he will. I'd still be minded to play him on Thursday, but I'm sure we'll come to our team shortly.
Yeah,
Can I just say,
Sorry.
Yeah. After you, Connor, you go first.
Sorry, everyone. When Liverpool obviously bought Thiago in the summer, they're not going to be expecting him to be playing in midfield without Fabinho, without Henderson, without Wijnaldum. And that's your midfield where you think they can sit in the sixes and just let Thiago go and do his thing further up the pitch. But Thiago is playing in the six. Fabinho, Klopp says, Fabinho himself says he is a 6 and he's a natural 6. But Thiago's had to play in his position. It's maybe not quite the game that Liverpool bought him for. And that's, I guess, where the mistimed tackles are slightly coming in. He's trying to play a game that's not his natural game to go and be the number 8 crazy creator, finding the gaps, the lines, the last pass and everything, turning tight spaces. He's playing a different role, which I think has been kind of tough on him as well, to be fair. But that's the other thing that injuries bring you without replacing players. It's another one.
That's it, isn't it? I think, we looked at it when Thiago signed in the summer. A lot of us assumed, perhaps unfairly, that Gini Wijnaldum might be the fall guy with his contract situation, and you'd have Henderson, Fabinho, and Thiago as your 3. And it's never been that way, has it? Because of the injuries that Liverpool have had. I thought Liverpool badly missed Henderson, and I think that's another thing that you perhaps has been a bit overlooked this season. Is Henderson has had various little injury problems that have kept him out for 2-3 game spells, and when he's in the team and when he's in midfield, Liverpool just look far better. And I think they just missed his energy yesterday. I think for all Thiago's qualities, he doesn't have the same energy, and I think Liverpool are just a far better team with Henderson in it. So one of the knock-on effects of this centre-back situation is Liverpool's midfield. The balance just doesn't seem right, and I do feel slightly sorry for Thiago, because, like Connor and Gorsty said, he's been thrown into a team early doors and not perhaps playing his natural game, not in a steady team, in a team that keeps getting changed, with a back four behind him that keeps getting changed, a midfield around him that keeps getting changed. It must be quite difficult, and you add to that the hype that is brought. It doesn't help. I mean, sometimes it makes me laugh. I see fans saying Thiago this, Thiago that. He hasn't really done anything in a Liverpool shirt just yet. He's had 2 really good games, and one was at Chelsea when Chelsea had 10 men. Another was the derby, which I thought he was excellent. He came on, had a cameo at Newcastle. He thought he was very good, but I don't think we've seen anywhere near his best. But the hype that accompanies him, I just think is a slightly too much at times. So I just think he needs time to settle. But I think Liverpool badly as Henderson. They miss Fabinho in that midfield as well. So that makes it harder to take that Wijnaldum's probably going to leave, because we've hardly seen the other guys play him in midfield, and Liverpool are going to lose their other best midfielder.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose it's difficult with the run of games that are to come, Gorsty, ahead of the return of Champions League action. We've got on screen now the next 5 games for Liverpool, 4 of the Premier League's top 7 at the time of recording in that. Tottenham and West Ham away this coming week, and then Brighton and City at home before a trip to Leicester City. It's always difficult making predictions in these times, but this is a tough run of games for Liverpool to get back into form in the Premier League.
Yeah, no question. It's particularly with Liverpool playing Thursday. I think are both Manchester clubs playing this week. I know is it it's Everton Leicester, is it? So that's another big game that Liverpool will be keeping an eye on. And these kind of midweek games, you know, they do have the potential to turn it all on its head. You know, we've seen it when Liverpool were top a couple of weeks back. United played Burnley, and next thing you know, Liverpool are no longer top, and then Liverpool get beat against Burnley, and suddenly they're 6 points off. And it's going to be another massive week. And this game against Tottenham is most certainly a must not lose. But I'd even argue that Liverpool can't even afford a draw at this stage, because if they're serious about still becoming champions, they can't allow that gap to be further any more than it is. You know, if City win their games in hand, they're 7 points clear. That's a big turnaround for Manchester City. And okay, they have dropped points over the last 18 months, 2 years, and they have dropped points this season. But I think Liverpool can't allow that to get too far ahead, because looking ominous at the moment, City. I've always said if you finish above City, you'll probably win the league. And while there's question marks over whether United will last the course, I think City are far better equipped to do that. And anything other than a win on Thursday is just a nail in the coffin for me.
Yeah, City go to West Brom on Tuesday, and Manchester United welcome Sheffield United to Old Trafford on Wednesday. But it's mad, isn't it, Connor, that when we sort of look at these runs of fixtures, that we're sort of questioning it. Last season, it didn't matter, maybe apart from the Manchester City games and a trip to Old Trafford. You weren't really concerned as to whether Liverpool could win a game or not. But as Gorsty says, it's must not lose, but even beginning to sort of get into the territory of don't draw, must win.
Yeah, must win in terms of the title aim. But I think looking at that run of fixtures, it's interesting because Liverpool always seem to raise their game against the big teams. You know, when Jose Mourinho's around, Liverpool are at it. Man City's obviously a massive game. They're more games that you don't need to provide extra motivation for. And I think, you know, throughout my Liverpool sporting life, it's always you more Brightons that you're worried about than the Tottenhams. Bizarrely, because obviously these games are really tough in the way that Liverpool, the situation Liverpool are in the minute, and the situation that teams like Tottenham are. But I think it's an opportunity for Liverpool to go and put a statement out. It's an opportunity for Liverpool to go and prove themselves again, get a win against Tottenham. It's a much, much bigger boost than, say, the Burnley game. I mean, you get a 1-0 win against Burnley, it's decent, you're on the right track, you're getting into wins, but get a 1-0 win against Tottenham and you're suddenly onto a bigger springboard. The 3 points almost means more just because of the way the title race is going. And it's similarly, get a win at City, and I think the season turns on its head all of a sudden, and Liverpool are looking like they're going to make a run for the title again. So there's obviously 2 ways of looking at this run. The one is obviously it's going to be tough, and there's tough teams, but the optimist in me is thinking, go out and beat these teams and we can get the season properly started again.
I'm going to be a pessimist straight away on that, Joe, and say Liverpool have only won 1 in 8 away from home in the Premier League since the win at Chelsea. Obviously, the 7-0 down at Crystal Palace, and only 2 away league wins all season. That really does need to change with this trip to Tottenham and then West Ham. Yeah,
absolutely. Like Connor, I kind of think they can turn things on its head if they win it at Tottenham on Thursday, and you know they can send out a bit of a statement. I think it's weird, isn't it? Because with Jose Mourinho being at Tottenham, I think a win over Tottenham feels like it means more. I think not just for the supporters and the club, but the players as well. It makes it into a much bigger game than perhaps it usually is. So yeah, I think they can turn things around if they win these games, but it's tough. You know, looking at those fixtures there, they're not ideal. And, you know, Liverpool will really rue. I remember them coming out of sort of October and, you know, they'd seemed to steady the ship without Van Dijk, and they had a run of fixtures that looked favourable. You look at some of those games, the West Broms, the Fulhams and Brighton, you know, away, and just think if Liverpool had picked up anywhere near, not even maximum points, they'd be comfortable at the top. And it's frustrating, but the weird nature of the season is that usually I would say Liverpool's away record and the way they've drawn a lot of games, would totally put them out the title picture. And I don't expect them to win the title now. I wouldn't bet on it. But this season's been so weird, and you just don't know. 6 points can turn into no points in no time, can't it? So, you talk about Chelsea being in ninth. Well, Chelsea were, in October, November, people were talking about them as one of Liverpool's major rivals, and they've all had to go. Leicester have been and gone. They're back again. Man City, were almost written off at the start of the season. Now they look ominous. United were laughed at, midway through the season. Now people are talking about how they're back. It wouldn't surprise me if all these teams have little problems and have bad runs of form, and Liverpool just need to put a run together. My big worry is Man City, though. Like Gorsty said, they're the sort of team that they just feel like that sort of team that can win 12 games and then that's it. So they do look a little bit worrying right now the way they're playing, but you never know. You just never know. It's been a strange season, and since lockdown, the Premier League's kind of been anyone's game. So in the past I'd laughed at the fact that Leicester could win the title. Now I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility. I think they're in there, so everyone can have a go. Liverpool just needs to put a run together, and this next 5 games is an opportunity. It could go either way, but if they win 2 or 3 of these big games, then they can put themselves right back in there.
I think opportunity is exactly the right word, to be honest. Spot on.
Yeah, let's just hope it's anyone apart from those across the park or those down the East Lancs. But anyway, let's get into our team selector for the Tottenham game. As ever, I will say Alisson in goal. And Gorsty, I'll come to you for the back 4.
Reece Williams for John Matip, and that is the back 5, I think.
Anybody want to sort of make a change to that, or Connor, do you want to take us on the midfield?
No, Alisson should have done better with the Bruno Fernandes free kick, but I'll leave him.
He's not world class, though. He's not world class, Bruno Fernandes.
Not world class.
By the way, just to make a point on Bruno Fernandes, I did see a lot of people saying last night he doesn't do anything in the big games. There you go, he's proven it. I thought he came off the bench. He did all right. He scored a brilliant free kick, and I disagree. I think Alisson was well beaten. I think it was a very difficult with the pace on it.
I think his weight is on the wrong foot, and he doesn't trust in the wall that he's put up. But hey,
perhaps so.
Nuance is in goalkeeping, isn't it?
Does Bruno Fernandes, though, not have that sort of Mohamed Salah quality? Obviously, Doyley always says that he's not world class, but you watch him sometimes and think he doesn't look all that great, and then bang, he comes up with a telling contribution like that.
Look, I disagree with Doyley. I do think he is world class. I think he's been that good at United that surely, what more could he have done in the last 12 months? But the only thing I would say is I don't think he proved anything yesterday. He has gone quiet in big games. One free kick doesn't mean that in the next big game he's going to go and dominate a team. So, I don't think he's underlined this point. I think he took a good free kick, and that's the end of it.
Fair enough, Connor. What about the midfield for the Spurs game?
The midfield. Well, we obviously discussed Curtis Jones in that pod. I want him to play. He'd be in my team for definite. Henderson, I massively hope is back fit. They've missed him big time. So Henderson, Jones, and I'm going to keep Thiago in as well. I think if Henderson can be at it, the way that Tottenham are going to sit deep, Thiago probably play a little bit deeper and let Jones go and create. Be my team, be my midfield.
It has quietly gone under the radar, of course, Jordan Henderson's absence. What he did play against Manchester United, but then he's not played in the last 2 games. Joe, what would your midfield be? Would you praying that Henderson's back?
Yeah, definitely. I'm partly tempted to rest Thiago, but then I think, if they don't have Henderson, then they don't really have the personnel to. So if Henderson's fit, Thiago, Wijnaldum, Henderson. If Henderson isn't fit, then Thiago, Wijnaldum, Jones. I'd like to get Jones in the team, but I think if Henderson's fit, then